Hello, I'm the 10-minute English teacher. Let's get you exam ready. Today we're thinking about A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, and I'm going to get you to learn 25 quotes without looking. Before we get going, don't forget to like and subscribe. There are plenty of things on the channel to help you with English literature and English language. Okay, let's learn 25 quotes without looking. And we're going to start with level 1. We've got a quote in front of you now that you must know. As solitary as an oyster, that's used to describe Scrooge in Stave 1. If we don't know that and we can't remember that without looking, let's make it easier for ourselves with some key images. So now we've got a person on their own for solitary and an image of an oyster for the oyster, as solitary as an oyster. This is level 1, learning to remember the key quotes using some key images alongside the words. I'll walk you through the 25 that we're going to learn now. So, in Stave 1, Scrooge is described to be a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone. Dickens also tells us that he has a grating voice. Fred arrives at the counting house and he talks about others and says that they are fellow passengers to the grave. He speaks about Christmas and says that it's a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. And there's an even easier way to recall that without looking. We've got KFC, please. It's a good time, a K, kind, F, forgiving, C, charitable, pleasant time. Scrooge says to his nephew Fred, "Why did you get married?" Charity collectors arrive and he says to them, "Are there no prisons?" Scrooge returns home at the end of his working day and Dickens tells us darkness is cheap and Scrooge liked it. Jacob Marley comes to visit and he says, "I wear the chains I forged in life." We are then in Stave 2. The ghost of Christmas past is described to be like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man. From him comes a clear, bright jet of light. We see Belle, Scrooge's past fiancée, leaving him, and she says, "Another idol has displaced me." This is something that affects Scrooge, and he says, "Why do you delight to torture me so?" So, reflecting on all the things and opportunities that he's missed out on in his life. We're then into Stave 3. The Ghost of Christmas Present has a cheery voice, very much contrasting Scrooge's grating voice. He also has an open hand. Then we're taken to the Cratchit's house and we see Mrs. Cratchit brave in ribbons. So she doesn't have very much to wear on Christmas Day to make herself special and instead makes her twice-turned gown look more special with some ribbons which are affordable and cheap. Scrooge's name is mentioned at the table when Bob Cratchit suggests a toast to the founder of the feast. The mention of his name cast a dark shadow on the party. Scrooge then asks about Tiny Tim and is told by the Ghost of Christmas Present, if these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die. And then we've got ignorance and want that appear from the folds of the Ghost of Christmas Present's robe. And the Ghost of Christmas Present says, "On his brow I see that written which is doom unless the writing be erased." And right at the end of that chapter, the Ghost of Christmas yet to come appears. He is draped and hooded. We go to the Cratchit's house for a second time in Stave 4, and Dickens writes, "The noisy little Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner." After being taken to his graveside, Scrooge begs for another chance, and he's come to a realisation about himself and others, and says, "If the courses be departed from, the ends will change." And then we're into Stave 5 right at the end. Heavenly skies, sweet fresh air, merry bells is the description of the day that Scrooge awakens to. He says, "I'm quite a baby," which reflects the idea that he has got a chance to start again and has been redeemed. He also says that he feels as light as a feather. So that takes us to level 2. Now we're going to have a look at the quotes without seeing those keywords and only seeing the images in their place. So Scrooge is as solitary as an oyster. He's a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone. He's got a grating voice. Fred says that people are fellow passengers to the grave. He also says that Christmas is a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. And we can remember KFC, please, to get us to the end of that quote when we need to recall it from memory. Scrooge says, "Why did you get married?" and says, "Are there no prisons to the charity collectors?" Darkness is cheap and Scrooge liked it. Jacob Marley's ghost says, "I wear the chains I forged in life." Like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man is the description of the Ghost of Christmas Past, who also has a clear, bright jet of light coming from him. Another idol has displaced me is said by Belle as she leaves Scrooge, and he says to the Ghost of Christmas Past, "Why do you delight to torture me so?" The Ghost of Christmas Present appears at the beginning of Stave 3. He has got a cheery voice and an open hand. Scrooge is taken to the Cratchit's house. Dickens tells us that Mrs. Cratchit is brave in ribbons. Scrooge's name is said at the table by Bob Cratchit. We're told that mention of his name cast a dark shadow on the party. When Scrooge asks the ghost of Christmas present about Tiny Tim, he is told if these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die. In regards to ignorance, we are told, on his brow I see that written which is doom unless the writing be erased. The ghost of Christmas yet to come is draped and hooded. The noisy little Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner. Scrooge says to the ghost of Christmas future, or ghost of Christmas yet to come, if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. And then right at the end, there is change. Heavenly skies, sweet fresh air, merry bells. Scrooge says, I'm quite a baby. And he says, I am as light as a feather, with the image of the feather symbolising his redemption with its relationship to angels, perhaps. And that takes us to level 3. So we've had a look at the key quotes themselves. We've replaced, we've had a look alongside those keywords. We've had some key images to reinforce those keywords, and then we've replaced the keywords with the images themselves. At this point, we should be able to recognise the quote and recall it from memory with just the key images. And once we can do that, we should be able to recall the quotes without the images there in front of us to jog our memory. So here are 2 short assessments for you. So we've got this one here. All you need to do now is pause the video on these quiz sheets, and then you can walk yourself through. If there's one that you're stuck, you can simply use the play bar to recall and find that out. So there's sheet 1 and there is quiz sheet 2. So these 2 pages, or these 2 flashcards with images for the slides, should help you to recall all of those 25 quotes that we thought about today. Okay, to take it further, watch the video again and mute the sound. You do the talking. So walk yourself through the key quotes twice, and that should also help you to lock these into your long-term memory. Can you also provide analysis for each of the key quotes? So as you're watching the video, you might want to pause and think about all the reasons why these are significant moments. Can you also link the key quotes to a range of key quotations and themes? Which images relate to each other? So, for example, there are lots of mentions of darkness and light. That's a binary opposition in the novella or the novel. So you can look at these images and think, actually, there's a relationship here. When you see them as images, you can spot links that you might not have thought about by just reading the text itself alone. You could also make your own picture guides for some other key quotes. So if there's another 10, 15, 20 quotes that you might know of or want to recall and learn from memory, why don't you make your own picture guides in the way that I've done to help you revise? Revisit this again in a week or so to lock those key quotes into your long-term memory. So recall is really important. Give it a week or so and then return and have another go. Okay, check out the other videos on my channel. I'll continue to add content. Feel free to ask for something you'd like to see me cover in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and keep revising.